Hey there, girlfriend. Ingafay here. Super excited to be with you today. Have another coaching girlfriend that I want to share with you. Kat, we're going to talk about how to redefine yourself. So stick around and we'll see you on the other side. What's up, Kat?
What's up, Inga?
I am so excited to have you here, girlfriend. But before we get started and talking about how to redefine yourself, I want to get in your business. Tell us a little bit about you, who you are, who you serve, and how you serve them.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. As far as jumping into my business, there's a couple different things we can start with. But I tell you what, let's start off with the company that I have, which is the Lotus Effect. So I am the creator and founder of the company, the Lotus Effect, where we focus on your business operations and your mindset and marrying the two together. And my favorite part of running my business is actually redefining how you run your business and creating customized operations and strategies and processes that actually align with how you already work so that you don't feel like you're fitting in somebody else's box. And that even kind of goes way beyond that, because then we build in the personal development piece and that mindset piece, which actually comes from my backstory that I love to share with a lot of people as well through my speaking engagements and my recent book that I just released as well. And that's really talking about the abuse that I went through for over 10 years and restarting my life over at the age of 28 with two young boys. They were 10 and 7 at the time. And how I eventually, after I realized that I needed to heal my own wounds, realized that other people need to be aware of how we can redefine who we are and how down to a neurological factor, we actually have the ability to change the beliefs that people have put in us and choose who it is that we want to be. So it's one of my favorite things to do. It's an absolute passion of mine to really take that victimhood mentality and transform it into an empowerment situation and just really help people blossom to what they want to be. And that comes from the lotus itself, which grows in the grossest of mud, the nastiest of mud. But as it rises to the surface, it's absolutely beautiful, completely unharmed, untainted, and everything. And I feel like everybody has a journey along that lotus themselves.
Okay, so girl, I'm curious. We got really gonna get in your business now. You said that at the age of 28 that you made a line in the sand and basically decided that you were going to rise above your trauma. What was it at that particular time in your life that really made you say, okay, I've had it. I got to change something?
I would say that there is quite a few catalysts to this, but the first defining one is when my children at the ages of about 5 and 7 came out one time during an argument with my ex, and I can't even tell you what we were arguing about, but we were going back and forth, and my children came out, and the words that came out of their mouth at that age was, "Yeah, mom, why are you doing this? Why are you making daddy angry? This is your fault." And like that for me was just like okay, time out. Like something has to change. What's interesting though with that is I would love to say that like that was it. I made the decision and I moved on. It took me 2 years to get out of that situation. And I actually had help. I had a really great job at the time, and I worked with patients at a medical facility.
Okay.
And a patient of mine that actually worked in the judicial system, I was just talking to him about some things. He was a patient that came in all the time, but for whatever reason, I gave way too much information that I know I normally didn't do. I was very careful. And so he actually told me after we were done talking, he said, well, you have one of two decisions. Either you can call the police and let them know what happened, or I'm going to call them for you. He said, I actually work in the domestic violence center.
Oh,
At
wow.
the courthouse.
Okay.
And so that was the kind of the catalyst that everything that kind of leaded up to there. And I thought about it over the last 2 years after my kids said that, of like, something needs to change, but how am I going to change it? I didn't have a car. I didn't have a cell phone. My money was stolen from me every time when we were trying to pay bills. So there were so many points where you just kind of feel crushed. And that really was kind of like that defining moment where it was like, okay, like I have my out. I am being given a choice, and I now get to make the decision to go with it or stay in the same cycle.
I knew it had to be something, girl. I knew it wouldn't. If you just woke up one morning to say, okay, I'm done. I got to do something different. I am gracious, and I'm sure the people that are watching are gracious that you shared that, because I'm sure that's going to help somebody today to give them the courage to to do something different, for sure. So when it comes to redefining yourself, how do you do that? I know you said it was a process between the time that you had this moment in your life and when you actually did it. What was the process of you going through that?
There's so many things within the process, and I would love to tell everybody that, like, once I got out, I decided I wanted to be a completely new person and all of these things. But if we're going to be completely honest, when I got out of that relationship, I still fought in court for 4.5 years.
Wow.
Afterward, I had him arrested additionally for stalking charges, and it was a complete and total fight. But the goal was, at that time, was keep the job that you have, keep a roof over your kid's head, and keep moving forward, right? So I shoved a lot of things down for probably a good 4.5 years before I even made the decision that, like, I really needed to do something. I was finally diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety. I was told that I was brainwashed. I ended up having a heart condition for a little while from the amount of anxiety that I didn't even realize I was dealing with, because I never had that before. But I will say that I got into another relationship. I thought things were going well. My oldest one was actually turning into a teenager. And then what I realized was, okay, time out again, right? We're doing the same things again. Him and I are yelling at each other. We're screaming for no reason. We're getting in each other's faces. And I'm like, why are things happening that happened in this relationship that I'm no longer in? Like, what is going on? And that's when I started really kind of looking inward. And by a coincidence, by the grace of God, whatever you want to say, I was gifted a free facial by a lady, and I went in for it. And somehow we got on the subject of the law of attraction and manifestation. And I just kind of did a little bit of research, because I was like, okay, this sounds crazy. But what it did was it launched the catalyst for me of just like really opening up and understanding, like, oh my gosh, people have trauma. People have things that they're unhealed from. You can change that. And then it just snowballed from there, and I never looked back.
That is awesome. So who are the people that you serve then? Is it female professionals? Is it men and women? I mean, who do you serve?
Yeah, I actually serve both men and women. Now, I do specialize in entrepreneurs. I do feel like entrepreneurs have a little bit more of a growth mindset. Not that those in the corporate space or anything else don't, and I'm always happy to have conversations with them, but that has kind of been the people that have fallen in front of me. I do enjoy working with both, and I say that because women have a special place in my heart, right? Because we go through a lot, we hold a lot of emotions, we're taught to hold a lot of space, and I'm a mom of 2 boys. I also understand what our men are lacking in society. I understand what our men are not taught. Where women are creating groups and getting support and comfort from one another, our men are lacking a lot of that. And so it's really close to my heart to be able to provide that open, non-judgmental space for them, so that they can understand that, like, oh, I can heal too. This isn't just a woman thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how do you find your folks?
You know what? I have actually been really blessed to word of mouth, social media. I have a lot of people that see my reels and all the craziness that I do of my podcast. And I also get a lot of referrals, which to me has been one of the biggest blessings, I would say, in my business, because the people that I already work with that send people to me, they align, which means they usually align with me. And it just creates this beautiful flow. And that's probably been my favorite way of making connections and working with people in the business.
So how has the title been a part of your story and journey just after all of this has happened?
Yeah, so the Lotus Effect is actually really dear to my heart. When I got out of my abusive relationship a few years later, I always kind of came back to what to me symbolizes that I am unstoppable, what to me symbolizes that I can always move forward. And the lotus flower always kept coming up. And when I really looked into it, there's meanings behind it in Buddhism and Hinduism and all these other places, but it really does symbolize a fresh start. And it really does show that no matter where you begin, which lotuses only grow in mud, you can always rise to the surface and blossom into something beautiful. And what's actually interesting is there's a scientific term called the lotus effect. And it is what the lotus flower itself does, which is when it rises to the surface, the petals on it have these distinct features that actually create this like runoff for anything that is left on it. So it is completely untouched and unharmed. And
Wow.
in my opinion, we are all like that. So many of us feel like we're broken. We feel like there's something wrong with us. And it's like, no, it's just, you're just going through the mud. And
Right.
that's the journey that I take my clients on as well, is, you know, getting them unstuck and then letting them see the beauty that they already have in themselves. So the lotus effect symbolizes so much in my business, how I treat my clients, but also in my personal life as well.
That's awesome. I never thought about it like that. So it's just literally a transformation in itself. I mean, the lotus is somewhat of your logo when it comes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you think about it like that. That's wow. So what kind of trauma have your clients been through that you've helped in the past?
So I've had some that have had childhood trauma. That one, unfortunately, seems to be really common with the people that I've dealt with. But then I also have those that have been through some form of abuse. Those are generally the two most common, and it's really sad because that's, you know, very prevalent, especially here in the United States.
Right.
But it's also one of my favorites to deal with as well, because essentially in both situations, we're really going back to understand the beliefs that have been put on us, and then being able to change and redefine those beliefs and really break down to understand, like, do I really wholeheartedly believe in this belief, in what's been told to me, or do I choose to define myself as something else?
It sounds like it's centered around a lot of limiting beliefs and letting go of those limiting beliefs to become that better version of yourself. So, when it comes to helping them in their business, how does these limiting beliefs translate in their entrepreneurship that you've seen?
Yeah. So I love that you asked that question, because what's interesting is a lot of us seem to think once we get into the entrepreneurial space that, you know, my operations are the problem, or I just don't have this right, or I'm not using the right system, not paying enough money for this system. And in reality, I see us all as like an onion. And as you kind of start to peel things back, more things keep popping up. But
Right.
it really is what is at our core. And so I get the beauty to be able to speak with my clients, let them tell me what
Yeah.
their overview is of what they think is wrong, because right, our logic is usually the one that picks up on that and says, oh, well, this is the problem.
Right.
And then I start asking questions. And as I start asking questions and they start explaining things to me, then it's like, okay, but did you realize that you said this? Well, if you did this, did you realize that it does this? Well, no. Okay. So then there's actually a deeper issue that we need to handle, because I can build processes and systems and strategies all day long. But if
Right.
your mindset isn't right, it's never going to stick.
Yeah, I got you. So, how do you normally start off with a client? Do they come in and say they want the processes and the systems to help them do XYZ? And based on what they tell you, that's what you start working on. But as you continue to work with them, you start peeling back and realize it may be a trauma or a mindset kind of thing that they need to overcome, so they can then use the processes and the systems to allow them to expand their business. Is that typically how it works? Or, yeah, just kind of tell us a little bit about
Yeah. No, essentially that generally is how it goes. We have a lot of people, I don't necessarily have people saying, oh, I just need to work on my mindset. Can you help me with that? Generally it's, you know, can you help me in my business? And yes, we do have a very in-depth conversation. I always tell everybody I'm going to bombard you with questions.
Right.
I am an interrogator, but it does allow me to understand right at the forefront what is going on. So yes, you can tell me that this is the problem, this is what you're dealing with, and I can say, okay, and then we can kind of start to assess. I can ask questions, we can figure out where we need to break it down, and then we can pick it apart, right? Because the way that they answer those questions give me really good clues as to what the actual issue is, right? I mean, you could
Okay.
say that I really want to get more clients and I'm really trying, but I'm not really sure why. I'll give you an example from a client of mine. And I'm like, okay, well, let's take a look at your calendar. What are you doing on your day to day?
Right.
I don't really have a calendar. I'm like, all right, that's the first issue. Let's start there, right? So a lot
Right.
of people, it tends to be understanding how to build those new habits, how to do time management. And then as
Right.
you start getting into that, they start asking questions. They start saying, okay, well, this, I don't understand this, or this doesn't make sense to me. And say, okay, well, then let's take a step back and let's see where that is. And I love being people's cheerleader. Like that is a huge part of it. And I think that a lot of people need that
Right.
when they're trying to figure out all of these pieces, because we all want to be supported, right? We all
Yep.
want to feel community,
Yep.
and we do need to be celebrated for the small things that we are doing. And
Right.
then we can build from there. And sometimes even doing just something as simple as that can help blow somebody out of the water, because now you've helped build their confidence. Now you've helped build their courage behind their business. And
Right.
a lot of times those smaller limiting beliefs that have still maybe kind of been lingering, you don't even have to worry about, because now you can go this direction because this is so big.
Right. I'm with you. I love it. You give them their wings. That's basically what you're
Yeah.
giving them, so they can truly fly and do the things that they want to do. How do you
Yeah.
typically work with them? Is this on a one-on-one basis, or this in a group setting, or you do both? How do you normally work with them?
Yeah, generally right now we are at a 1-to-1, and I actually sell my coaching package in a block of 3. I did try the 6 months, 3 months, all that stuff, but
Right.
what I found was if I can allow someone to understand, they're more willing to take a chance on themselves versus
Mm.
signing a contract that says I'm stuck for 6 months, and then they find out that this isn't what they needed or didn't work for them. So they buy 3 sessions at a time, and then of course I can customize it from there if they decide that they want to do something longer, which again allows me to meet my client where they are at,
Right.
and then build from there the direction that we need to go.
Okay, awesome. So after they work with you, you do the 3 sessions, they decide if they're going to continue or are they going to stop. What is the average that you typically work with your clients?
Yeah, generally between 3 and 6 months. Just
Okay.
kind of depends on what is going on. I do have a higher tier of clients that need more implementation, maybe already have a VA and admin and are like really running in their business. So they may need a little bit more kind of on the back end of stuff. And I do help with some of that as well. But generally, for those that are just really trying to simplify things down, get out of the overwhelm, just get moving, it's generally between the 3 and 6 month range.
Now, I know here recently that you just co-authored a book. So can you tell us a little bit about what your book and your chapter, and tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that?
I'll tell you all about the book. So the book is called Rattled Awake. It is volume 6, and it is the podcasters edition. It's published by a beautiful lady by the name of Lonnie Ray. I absolutely adore her. If you're ever looking to publish a book, she is amazing. But I had the amazing opportunity to be along with 8 other authors, and we were asked one question, and that question was, what over the last 5 years has rattled you awake? And as soon as she told me this question, I fell in love, because for me, over the last 5 years, it has been my children. So remember, I told you that my one became a teenager and I started noticing some things. Well, my second one is now 16. My oldest one is 19. And what I
Wow.
noticed over the last 5 years, starting at about 5 years ago, was while I was in my healing process, I was doing 10 times better than what I had been doing. I was realizing that my children were still dealing with the traumas and the things that they had seen in a very young age, which looks a little bit different than how I was handling my trauma. But there were also overlaps. And that really kind of brought forth this idea of, okay, if I can learn to heal myself even more, what could that potentially do for them? Could
Right.
I teach them these tools and these skills that I'm now learning in my late 30s and give them this huge leap in their life to be able to handle things a lot better than I could have ever done? And so that's part of what my story is about, as I talk about how I was raised in an older upbringing where, children are to be seen and not heard. And,
Yeah.
they have the control aspect, and how I brought that into my life with my children. And the abuse just solidified that I should be the one to control, because if I don't have control, then everything falls apart, right?
Wow.
And then I talk about learning that through my healing and actually being open and honest actually completely changed the trajectory of how my kids then responded to me. And here's the crazy part, and I talk about this in the chapter as well. As I started opening up about that, as I started stepping into more of this like leadership and coaching role with my kids versus traditional parenting,
Right.
and I started going in with this open communication and trying to really understand them.
Yeah.
Not only did it change them, it changed the way I spoke with my spouse, it changed the way I dealt with my family, and it changed the way I had conversations with my clients as well. And so I really talk about how you can really actually take the things that you do in business and the things that you do in your personal life, and you can marry them two together, you can mesh them two together. And I promise you that is so less exhausting than
Right.
pretending to be one person here in business and somebody completely different when you're at home.
Yeah, I love it. So as a result of that experience, are you able to also translate that to your clients as well, where they're able to mesh the two together more so than separate?
Oh, yes, 100%. And honestly, that's one of my favorite things to do is to really teach them how to marry those two together. Because most people that I deal with either have young children or have had kids in the past and are,
Right.
transitioning over and really trying to find who they are. And we need a center of gravity, but we also need to remember that we don't have to show up to be anybody but ourselves. And that in itself attracts the people to you that you want to work with, that you want to be friends with. And it just shoves everybody else away. I can't tell you how many people like I've lost contact with or they just don't reach out to me anymore. And it's not because I said, oh, I can't deal with you. It's just because our values didn't align and they
Right.
just kind of started fading out, which is, to be honest, so much more relaxing than not having to feel like the bad guy to be like, I just can't handle you anymore. But it's just this natural process, this natural flow of people that come into your life that really resonate and your clients that come into your life that really resonate. And then you don't have to fight it as much. And when you do have someone that steps into your world that doesn't necessarily align, it's a lot easier to put those boundaries up, to make sure your authentic self is present and allow them their space to do what they need to do.
I love it. Yes, I am all about authenticity. So thank you for sharing that. Well, I wanted to ask you if you had one thing that you would want to tell my audience about redefining themselves, one thing that they could do, kind of an action step that would just kind of get the ball rolling. Because typically it's that first step that's always the hardest. What would you tell them to do today?
I love this question. So the first thing I tell everyone to do is start small.
Yeah.
Start as simple as you possibly can and then move from there. And I'll give you an example. This is a great thing you can put into action today. Take a piece of paper and make you a list. Draw a line down the center and look at your beliefs, the things that you always think of. Money is hard to earn. It doesn't grow on trees. I'm supposed to own this, whatever those are that, when you say them, but at the same time, they're kind of irritating.
Right.
Make a list of those and then make a list of some things that you wish you could believe in more. From there, you can then start figuring out, okay, this actually I don't like. I'd prefer to believe this, and write that new belief. And then you can start eliminating it one by one. You're not going to make it through the whole list, right? But start with one or two phrases and just be aware of it. When you say it, correct yourself. Start putting in that new belief. What you are literally doing is you are reprogramming the neurons in the brain to believe in a new habit. So just like people that pick up smoking or that pick up an addiction or stop something, they are creating a new habit. So it's the same thing. It works psychologically. It works with the neurons, called neuroplasticity. If you want to look it up, it's one of the coolest things I ever learned when I was on this journey. But literally start there. And then from there, start working your way down your list.
That's awesome.
And you would be amazed at how something that simple can start shifting your perspective, can start shifting how you see other people, can start shifting your ego, bring it down, and just be able to be more at peace with how you believe in yourself.
I love it. Just swap it out. That's what you got to do. I love it, love it, love it. Well, I want to show your website. Tell the viewers about your website and what goodies you got, if you got any. Yeah,
definitely. So the website's just going to give you some really basic information about me, how you can work with me. It also talks about my podcast, the speaking engagements that I do. We actually shortly will have some information regarding the YouTube channel that will be launched.
Awesome.
The book will be on there so that you can find that as well. But currently you can at least find it on Amazon. But we'll end up having all that information. So we're doing a complete revamp, but it just helps you kind of get a feel of who I am, and you get to see me as I am. You'll see that all over the place. I do my absolute best to just show up as me. And sometimes that's in a tank top and shorts.
That's right. Be your authentic self. Yes, you guys know I'm all about that. Kat, thank you so much, girl, for sharing your time and your wisdom today. For those that are watching, thank you for watching. And of course, if you know of anyone you would like me to interview, by all means, reach out, girlfriend. Thanks for watching, and bye for now. Thank you.